Do you ever think that maybe you're not one of the 16 types, that you're getting different kinds of results based on tests you take, or you fit between a couple different kinds of descriptions? Well, I've got news for you. There are more than 16 types. This is something that Carl Jung, the inventor of this psychology, said himself, that he was just pioneering it. But now, somebody's gone ahead and made a lot more intricate, advanced version that expands this well past 16 types. But right now, I'm going to clue you into the next level that goes to 32 types. The 16 types that you know and love are still there. All the other content that you see does apply to those people, for the most part. But what's added is that there's 16 subtypes. So if you don't perfectly fit into one of these types, they don't explain you, you're not getting quite enough value, or you can't type somebody that you know after so much time, it could be that maybe it's a case of hybridism. So let's take a look at these 32 types. As you can see here, that there's different kinds of cognitive functions or processes. And you can see here that in the traditional system, you have somebody who's an SE-TI, for example, and that's somebody who's an ESTP. If you look at on the left side, all of these 16 personalities, you notice that they have an extroverted function and an introverted function next to each other. But on the right side, you can see 16 new types that are hybrids of these types on the left, where you can actually have two introverted functions or two extroverted functions in a row. Again, this doesn't necessarily relate to being extroverted or introverted as a person. Somebody with two extroverted functions does have higher potential to be extroverted, and likewise about an introverted functions being an introverted person, but it actually fits on a bell curve that crosses the middle, so it is possible to be a double extroverted person and to have introverted functions. In this system, the S letters have to do with real-world data, and so extroverted sensing is about data gathering, introverted sensing is about organizing data. Intuition is about the patterns between things, and extroverted intuition is going out into the real world, looking externally from yourself and gathering patterns, whereas NI is about organizing the patterns. So those are ways of taking in information, and when it comes to processing and making use of information, you have extroverted thinking, which is using tribal and community reasons for things, and you have introverted thinking, which is using a lot more laser-focused personal reasons for stuff. And similarly, you have extroverted feeling, which is community values, and introverted feeling, which is more about personal values. Okay, so for now, I'll go into each of these 16 hybrids. A first hybrid type is a community reasons ESFP. What this means is that unlike a traditional ESFP who's completely self-guided in their own expression, this kind of person is going to be considering more of what the tribe needs and also be a little bit more cool or rational with their decision-making process.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
The next one is an SEFE, another type that traditionally couldn't exist in the 16-type system, but actually explains about half of people who would otherwise identify as ESTPs. And this is an ESTP who uses more community values. So ESTPs are traditionally seen kind of as like barbarians. A lot of the heroes in traditional stories and the heroes' journeys who sort of go out on their own and strike out. This kind of an ESTP is still going to be very aware of their environment and enjoy a lot of sensual things, but they're going to be a lot more peaceful with the tribe and a lot more giving and stuff right off of the bat without having to go to a hero's journey to get to that point. The next one is a personal reasons ISFJ. In the traditional system, ISFJs tend to belong to community values more, but this hybrid version is going to have a bias towards having personal logic and more laser-like focus on their reasons for the things that make up their identities, worldviews, and values, but still be able to have that FE right afterwards to be able to resonate with the tribe. So each of these 16 subtypes is still similar to the 16 that they derive from, but just a tweak different where they prioritize one kind of thinking over another. The next is an ISTJ who uses more personal values than tribal logic. ISTJs are one of the cornerstones of society types of folks who get along with traditions and keeping order. But if this is a kind of person who actually might have the sort of organizational tendencies that create a lot of stability from having strong SI or data organization, when they have the personal values more, they're going to be doing things more from their own internal compass, be a little bit less harmonious, but also a little bit more bold. Next is an ENFP who uses community reasons. ENFP is traditionally a type who has a strong internal fire that they sort of project out regardless of how people are quite receiving the message, but they really want to get it out there. This hybrid type that uses community reasons more is going to be a bit more balanced about how other people consider things and consider other people's points of view a bit more when impacting their own decisions and ideas. Then there's an extroverted intuition, extroverted feeling ENTP. This community values hybrid of the ENTP is going to be a bit easier going with the community, have less classing points, maybe a little bit less feeling of me versus them, but they're also going to be a little bit less interested in some of the technical stuff and are less likely to disappear into a room for a week building some personal project where they abandon their friends, but more likely to actually build something that might be useful for others, but could be a little bit less technically complex. Then we have the personal reasons INFJ hybrid. And these INFJs are still going to have that sort of insightfulness, but they're going to target it a little bit less outwards to people and be a little bit less easygoing with the community and a little bit more focused on some technical aspects that they're really personally interested in and draw a bit more of their identity from their own reasons that they come up with throughout life. And then we have a personal values INTJ hybrid. This sort of INTJ is going to be a little bit less focused on technical side, but still have a lot of appreciation for insights and organizing patterns. They're also going to have a little bit more preference following their moralities and paying attention to things that are their values or making decisions with their hearts over the kinds of things that society expects or that most people do or what they might be taught externally. So those are the 8 different kinds of derivative patterns that can exist. Now we'll go into the next 8 that are going to be a little bit quicker, just explaining the kind of concepts that you just heard, but applied to different function orders. First up, there's a TeSe version of an ENTJ and an FESE version of an ENFJ. And again, these are just flipping the second functions and the third functions within each other. So in this case, they're going to prioritize the SE over the NI, so they're still going to be pretty balanced on real-world sensory and abstract patterns, but these ones are going to be a little bit more immersed in the moment, value quick-witted short-term things, and also have a bit higher energy. There's also a TiSi version of an INTP and an FISI version of an INFP, who are a bit more into data organizing. There's a TENE ESTJ and an FENE ESFJ that are a bit more about pattern gathering. So these guys are going to be more biased to seek out more information, be a little bit less traditional, going with the things that they already know. And then we have a TINI ISTP and an FINI ISFP who are going to be a bit more pattern organizing. They're going to have more time where they might enjoy being by themselves or not as immersed in the real world as much and probably living a bit more in patterns and an intellectual world. In general, I think that having 32 types is a significant enough step to explain a lot more people when half of the people don't really fit into those buckets. So each additional step you go from the 16 types, you lose a little bit of the granularity. So the 16 types are still good starting buckets, but I think having another level is really nice to explain half of people who don't quite identify enough in the 16 type system. It keeps going on forever because we're infinitely complex and there's a lot of philosophical models that we could be doing, but I think that having this 32 types model really does bring a lot more usefulness to some of this. So subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to learn more about this system. The next video is going to be about how to create really strong teams by using personality psychology. And this could apply to games or to work or to different kinds of projects. And also, if you want to learn more about the original source of this, you can check out Dave's Superpowers channel. He's a super awesome guy and really informative about this stuff. See you next time.